And we welcome you into the spotlight. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Drew Brent. If you're in the market to buy or sell your home, give us a call today. It's 479-968-5668, or you can cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com. I am so excited to have back in studio with us the legend himself and one of my dear friends, the man. Some Guy Named Robb is in the building. What's up, man?
Hey, Drew. How are you, man?
I am outstanding. Brand new album out. It's right over here. You can't see it from here, but I will have a close-up shot of that for all of the folks.
Personalized copy.
Yeah, that's one thing I do want to say is that this is a signed, autographed copy to whom?
To Drew Baca.
Right.
From Han Brolo.
You have called me Drew Baca for how long?
I mean,
as long as you've known me, I think.
I mean, when you get a good name, you just let it ride.
Right. Han Brolo is pretty good too, though.
Thanks, bro.
Han Brolo and Drew Baca. This is Adventures of Indie Boy, the brand new album.
This album is The Adventures of Indie Boy.
Okay. The last time you were here, this was a germ of an idea still happening. You were working on it, some, but you were still. But there was something interesting about that interview. You said I may have several different albums from several different personas.
Yes.
Indie Boy is one of those personas.
Yes, it is.
And the music reflects that.
It does.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, the Indie Boy, coming out of my last album, The Folkster, which was 2018, 2019, I knew I wanted The Folkster to be a caring, thoughtful, reflective, loving, fun-loving, you know, just that's who the Folkster side of my writing is. Mm-hmm. And that became a really, an album that people embraced, and how great timing, right as the pandemic swept in, that we would need this loving, this caring, this thoughtful, reflective album. And I'm happy that it met people where they were.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've been in this lockdown
we're still here
for 2 years later, the Indie Boy, I think, is the album that we need coming out of it. Indie Boy is the fun, upbeat, silly, a little irreverent, a little it's stupid, you know. And it's like when I was writing these songs, especially, you know, some of them, I just allowed myself to be as stupid as I wanted to be. I mean, one of the songs that's probably going to be the most popular one is called Death by Panda. And if I've gone to some of the schools and played it, and it is easily the children's pick. I mean, doesn't matter the age, from high school all the way to kindergarten.
I've listened to the album.
Yeah.
And I told you before we came on air that I decided to listen to this album in a completely different way. There's some advice from a friend of mine who said, just don't listen to lyrics, listen to vibe. All right. Now, I know that a guy saying vibe who's also currently wearing a tweed jacket seems a little off.
Yes, Professor?
Yeah. Tell me what you know about vibe. But there is something to it. The Folkster had When You're Cold on it, right?
If You're Cold.
If You're Cold. Okay.
Yeah.
That song pretty much summed up the Folkster in my mind.
I see that.
In this album, there is a song that is my favorite. It's called Elvis Died Next Year.
Yes.
That pretty much sums up the totality of this one. Talk a little bit about that song and why you agree or disagree with me about my summary on that.
Okay, all right, let's see. Okay. Elvis Died Next Year was a thought I had because I was doing some, you know, I was reading an article or something and about Elvis, and I was thinking about, I think, you know, when I came up with the line, Elvis died next year, and I'm like, well, how would that line work? And I thought, well, it'd have to be time travel. So I just wrote a song about time travel and about how, you know, this all worked, mentioning people like Marilyn Monroe, the sinking of the Titanic,
Amelia
Earhart, all these people and places, Tiananmen Square, you know, all these things, and I just wanted to mention them in a way that just points out there's a lot of horrible things that have happened in the world, and even some of the best things turned out to be, you know, I mean, everything ends. So, you know, there's a bit of a sadness to that, but all tongue-in-cheek, all lighthearted. And he even goes back, the character goes back and visits himself as a kid, and he encourages him. He's like, hey, man, you're going to see some things to come, man, and some of them aren't going to be much fun. And the worst part is you can't change anything about it. You got to learn how to live your life. You got to learn how to do what's right, because you only get one shot at this life down here. So, you know, it wraps it all up into a nice little bow to say, hey, you know, it's not, even in its I hope it's precocious. Even its precociousness, it's still silly and it's still tongue in cheek. So
Does it come from a place, you think, of sort of where you're finding yourself now as an artist? And what I mean by that is that the song in and of itself is talking to the past. You have said that the way that music has changed, you have to change as an artist. Is Elvis Died Next Year sort of a conversation with Rob?
yes, and that's way too insightful. All right. So
It's
how
the
dare
tweet.
you?
It's the tweet. It's the tweet
How
that did
dare
it.
you, Professor? Professor Drew Baca.
Yeah.
No, I think that is really insightful, though, because I don't know that I've delved into the
Psychoanalytical part of that.
I don't know that I've gone that far, but I do think that we tend to, whenever just being writers and creators like that, we tend to steal from these ideas that are lingering somewhere just below the surface, and it's a lot easier to sing it sometimes than it is to say it.
There's a reality to your writing, despite the fact that this is conceptually different than anything that you've done, which was intentional, by the way. Before we get into that, let's go back a little bit. You said there were several personalities, which I said, well, that could be something you needed to talk to somebody about. But you just turned it into an album. You turned your disorder into an art.
Right,
I'm proud of you
a
for that.
musical schizophrenia. Yeah.
Right. How many more personalities are there?
That I know of. This sounds so weird when you actually talk about it. Yeah. That I know of, I would say, the Folkster was a persona. Some Guy Named Robb is a persona in and of itself. It's I actually got told recently that they wouldn't consider me for an awards thing because of my name, Some Guy Named Robb, and I was like, okay, it's like thanks, thanks for not considering me, but. But I thought it's so funny that that's still a problem after all this time, 20 years of being Some Guy Named Robb. But Some Guy Named Robb is a persona, and he's very encapsulating, and like the umbrella. And then the Folkster, Indie Boy, Blackstripe is another character, which I'm very interested in delving into. More electronic music, a little more black and white, a little more rigid personality, which is part of who I am too.
Right.
And then the unapologist is a character I've had in my mind for years. When it comes to apologetics, I've always wondered why that we use the word apologetics whenever the truth is we're not apologizing, we're unapologizing.
Right.
For
more like defending.
We're defending, exactly. So the unapologist, I think he'll be a character that comes out later on in life. When I deserve him, I think he'll come more clearly. My song, "The Common Distance," spoken word, I think that's a little glimmer of the unapologist.
I would wonder too if we're starting to see glimpses of each one of these in the Folkster, in Indie Boy. If maybe they're starting to show themselves a little bit. Would you?
Well, I wanted to have fun with Indie Boy.
Right.
I'm like coming out of especially out of the pandemic and the lockdowns, the quarantines. I wanted just to remember what it's like to be 15 years old, practicing with a band, playing loud, cantankerous music, and there's such a freedom in that. 15, 16 years old, like
garage band,
playing literally in a garage, and I remember what that was like because I was doing that back whenever I was 15, 16 years old, and it's some of the happier times of my life. That's why I think when people listen to this, I hope they stick it in their. Well, I mean, if they purchase a physical copy, or I hope they stream it. I hope they're driving around town with the windows down, and just like that vibe.
Let's delve a little bit more into the.
Okay, you're scaring me now. Okay,
it's the tweet. I can't stop myself.
Go on, Professor.
It's the tweet.
Should I lie down on the couch?
The couch didn't come till next week. There's a song on the album called "I Don't Want to Be Woke, I Just Want to Be Awake," and I love that song.
You love it.
But what it tells me too is you're talking about Indie Boy being maybe this 15, 16-year-old. That song has got some semblance of a little bit of angst to it.
There's some angstiness.
I mean,
well,
very much.
Whenever you're 15, 16 years old, you don't want to be told.
Right.
What what to believe. As a matter of fact, at 15, 16 years old, you're questioning everything you've been told.
Right.
And I think that, in that spirit of Indie Boy, I don't want to be woke, I just want to be wake, is the whole philosophy of it doesn't matter your narrative. What matters is I'm going to find out the truth by listening to both sides. And that's the problem. There's a left side and there's a right side, but it's the middle is what makes the most sense.
Right.
So, but don't get me started on politics unless you're. Oh, now you want. I can see in your face. You're like, I really want to get him started on politics.
There is a portion of me that used to be around that would 100% have done that. But like you, I'm a different person now.
Right.
We're in different parts of our lives.
We mature.
Which is the next part of what I wanted to kind of dive into.
Okay.
Is it easier to write an album from this perspective now, having the ability to be more reflective of what those years represented and looked like than it maybe would have been to have actually tried to write this album when you were of that age?
Definitely, and trust me when I say that production value, songwriting,
well, yeah,
all
sure,
those things are so much more advanced than they would have been at 15 or 16 years old.
Maybe capturing the emotionality of it. I mean, adequately capturing what you were feeling, being able to articulate that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that it's so much easier now to articulate that, given I've had time to think about that. I've had time. It's interesting though. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. That mantra holds true, but it's also you don't know how to appreciate what you had until it's not right in front of you.
Right.
And I think that this was a healthy way to go back to being 15, 16 years old and playing rock and roll music again. This is a healthy way to say it's okay to be a kid, because there's a part of us, I think we were talking at lunch, my dad says I'm an 18-year-old trapped in a 70-something-year-old body. He's like,
right.
I'm still a kid though. And I think that's just it. The older we get, the more that we have to come to admit that in a way we're all faking it,
Yeah.
We're all faking it. I mean, we do know some facts and we know some truths that stand to be testaments that have been tried and true. And I know there's a God. I know He loves me. I know He loves you. I know these facts that are inalienable. But I had to come to this conclusion of that we're just passing through, and I guess to take the time that we have and try to make it worth something. Try to make which spending it with people that you find. Well, all people are valuable, but people that you appreciate the value.
We're talking to the legendary Some Guy Named Robb right here on the spotlight. Hey, if you're interested in buying or selling your home, you need to call Alathus Realty today. It's 479-968-5668, or you can cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com. Let's talk a little bit about some of the differences in this album as far as a marketing standpoint is concerned.
Okay.
There's a side A and a side B on the inside flap. This is kind of old school. This is kind of a throwback. Is this just going back to still once again trying to capture that magic of
I think so.
when we were back that age?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the artistic choice there?
Well, I love, when it comes to cassettes, as a matter of fact, one of the ways that I'm going to drop this is a USB cassette, because it's just a neat flashback, neat throwback to whenever we were young and used these archaic things called cassettes. Right, but it'll be a USB, which is, a nice way of moving into the future as well.
Right.
But as far as the marketing goes, I'm the worst at marketing. Like, I just want to put out the music and be like, okay, there it is. Go buy it if you want to.
Right.
But I was thinking this morning, can I just throw this idea out there?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I've talked about the Great Eastgate across Arkansas.
Yeah.
I've talked about it for a while, and to help the River Valley Food for Kids, because I love helping feed kids. Who doesn't love helping feed kids?
Josh Dunbar was on last week.
Josh Dunbar, amazing job over there being the director. And I was thinking what I might do with this, especially because not everybody needs a CD anymore. But I was thinking this might help fund my part of Skating Across Arkansas. I can just sell the CD and be like, half the proceeds are going to go just to helping me do the actual feed, and then everything else that people donate will all go to the Rebellion Food for Kids. I think I'm doing this now because I'm gonna.
You've got to verbalize
I've got to verbalize it, but I think I need to do that just to get the ball rolling again, because I feel like that's something that I keep on coming back to this thing. It's such an indie boy thing to do. Like, go get on your skateboard, skate across Arkansas, and raise money for kids. Why not?
Right. That if there's anything that encapsulates the idea of indie boy
And freedom and
Right.
being a kid and
I'll tell you what I was trying to put my finger on what this album reminded me of at lunch. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
You know what it throws me back to?
tell me.
Dream Shake, Higher Grounds.
Mm.
That's the vibe I get. It doesn't necessarily sound like the music I heard there, but that's the vibe.
Yeah.
And if you're younger watching this, you don't know what you missed. That was amazing. That's kind of what it throws me back to.
I had someone tell me during a live stream yesterday that like the first time I ever saw you was upstairs at a coffee shop, and in Russellville, they didn't remember the name of it, but Higher Grounds was the spot, and they're like, I thought you were an amazing musician, and just really very. I don't know if the amazing musician part is right, but I do know that the vibe that we had at those shows at Higher Grounds, we are still trying to find that.
We haven't found it yet. We got close.
Tell me when.
There was one place that I thought had
I think I know what you're talking
the
about.
opportunity to do it. And that was the
You're
Crossing.
going to make me cry.
The Crossing
I
had
love the Crossing.
it. We almost could have pulled it off there, but it was just too much to and I wish that we could have made something like that work. But
Yeah, we had some beautiful times, beautiful musical times.
oh my Lord,
at
we
the
had
Crossing too.
It was some amazing times. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of segue into with that was we've had Ryan Harmon on the show.
Love him.
He's coming back here in a couple of weeks. The Arkansas Country Music Awards nominees list just came out. Jeremy Huddleston is nominated. Kenny Drain is nominated. Ryan Harmon is nominated.
Are you bringing this up because I wasn't nominated?
No.
For the Country Music Awards?
I'm not. If you had been nominated for the Country Music Awards, I would have been. I would have won.
Have they listened to this album?
Wait a minute. I'm glad you got nominated and recognized, but I don't know that fits. The reason I bring that up is to talk about the sheer amount of talent in this area.
Absolutely.
You have built a legacy here of being probably, I don't know how else to say this other than being kind of the godfather of local music around here.
I've been called worse.
Well, maybe more the standard bearer. The guy who
that's
kind of
nice.
set the tone.
That's thoughtful.
When you look at the sheer level of talent that is here now, I want to know who Some Guy Named Robb is a fan of.
Oh man. Well, I mean, everybody you just mentioned, Kenny and I go way back. Kenny Drain, Ryan. I've been playing with him for years. I've known him for years. He's just as nice as they come, as genuine as they come, and his talent is amazing. Sam Albright, not only a good friend, but his newest song, "Carmen and Me," just
that whole album's amazing.
These harmonies just flow together. Amazing talent. Josh Cannon, who also plays with him. Oh my goodness, there's so many good musicians around here. You could throw some Jocko. I mean, is untouchable in the. I was looking.
He's a walking, talking jukebox.
Yeah, and he'll put his own spin on things, and he is playing a lot of places. Like I used to play at my most, I was playing sometimes 8 times a week. So I know his schedule, and I know that he's putting miles on the car, and he's doing that. It's not easy. I mean, that's the thing is like you can start off with music being a hobby and it being a fun thing, but as soon as it turns into a job, then it's just like every other job. You get up and you go and you work and you play those places, and I think it's strange that maybe it seems like it's easy and it's fun and it is a great job, but I can tell you plenty of times I got home at 3 a.m. and then my baby woke me up at 4 a.m. and then I had to get up and do this at 6 a.m. So I mean, like just life doesn't stop It's because you have a weird hour job. So
It's funny that you mentioned that. Um, these talented musicians are burning up the roads. You're still burning up the roads, even 25 years into your career. How long has it been? 20, 25 years, somewhere in there?
23 years, somewhere. As Some Guy Named Robb, yeah. But beyond that, I've been playing music since I was.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that people really understand necessarily when you go to a show. Well, let's just put it like this.
Let's do it.
You go to a show and you listen to an amazing talent like yourself or a Ryan Harmon or a Jocko, and it seems so effortless. I watched Ryan at downtown at Sundown and then again at Front Street recently, where he does this thing where he plays Wipeout, but he's a solo acoustic player, and he'll play the drum part on his guitar. All right, I take that for granted until I realize, my God, the level and the amount of practice that it took to get that down.
Right.
The showmanship that it took to get that down. Were there moments when you were working on different songs, writing or playing, where you said, I don't know if I can do this?
You just push through it until you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You just have to adapt, and if it doesn't work one way, try it another way. Try another way. Yeah, I think I was just thinking one of the most frustrating parts to me, and if I can share in our audience, if I could share the truth of being a performer, I would encourage everybody who's at a live show to do yourself a favor and put this away, and I know we all have it attached to our hip, but put it away and appreciate the moment that you're in. If you're surrounded by, if you're watching live music and you're surrounded by 30 TV screens, first of all, that's a crime if they're on. It's a crime, Second of all, though, I think that what we need to do as audiences, because I remember watching an amazing performer. I'm trying to remember exactly who it was. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Well, I won't say the name, but I'll say I was stunned because whenever they came to a conclusion, they brought the house down and it was just like, boom. And I'm like, yeah. And everyone's looking around and just, they're staring at their phones, they're staring at the TV, they're staring at that. I'm just like, what world do we live in where this masterful piece of work is ignored? Like, it blows my mind how disrespectful people are. And I thought that maybe it was just local people, and maybe I thought it was it. But the more I go out, I'm seeing these huge bands like U2 and people that you would expect to have more reverence, and they're getting the same kind of reaction from an audience. So my encouragement is, no one's ever told you guys how rude that is. Don't do that. It's not cool. Clap for the people, clap for them, and tip them, and I mean, I don't know. I don't understand what do you think that is? Is that just we're so used to staring at our phones, we're afraid to clap now, or afraid to?
I noticed the other night.
Yeah.
I was watching television, but I wasn't really watching television. I was hearing television while I was scrolling through my phone.
Right.
And at the same time, I was doing some homework.
Right.
I was doing 3 things at once, and I am completely used to that.
Right.
I don't know that I know how to function if there is not more than one thing coming at me at any given moment.
It's hard.
And I think that's true of most people. Now, I will say this. We went and saw Ryan Harmon at Front Street Grill a couple of weeks ago. And a friend of the show, former guest, Jeff Allen, was there with me and Jamie. It was a small show. We just sat and we listened to Ryan. We talked some amongst ourselves. We sat and we listened to Ryan. It was the most fun I have had at a show in a long time.
Yeah.
Because there was artist interaction. You were just enjoying the music, enjoying the vibe.
Yeah.
Again, sorry, I'm wearing tweed, but I said vibe.
Go on, Professor.
Yeah, I know. Professor Vibe. That's it.
That's your superhero name.
That's my superhero name. I'm Professor Vibe.
That could be an enemy or like a villain name. I'm not sure.
You know what? That can Professor Vibe feature on like the Black Stripe album?
Absolutely. He seems like they'd be at odds with each other. Oh no, it's Professor Vibe. Don't worry, I'll get him. All right, so go with where you're going. I was kind of curious where you headed there.
so, but you're so used to having so many things happen at once. We were talking at lunch about TikTok, about the rise of TikTok musicians, which has been great for some musicians. But let me encompass it like this: TikTok musicians who make it big or make it to the radio, they've made their fame on TikTok, but they still film the reaction of the first time their song's played on the radio. But they're not listening to the radio.
Right.
Does that make sense? I mean, so the question becomes like, okay, we have a reverence for the tradition of the institution.
That's a good point, yeah.
We have a reverence for, hey, I still want to hear myself on the radio. I still want to see myself on TV.
But I don't watch the radio
But I'm
or
not
TV.
going. I'm not going to watch or listen to these two institutions.
Yeah.
And so I think it may just be a culture change.
It may be.
But it's cyclical too.
Yeah.
It's cyclical too. I would predict in the next 5 years, coffee house music comes back.
Boy, I hope it does. But I mean, because I think with coffee houses, you used to be able to go into a coffee house, pull out a guitar, and everybody like, ooh, what's it gonna do? This is magic. And if you were a girl who played guitar, like the whole place went dead silent, and they were just like, so I don't know what's about to happen. Whenever Jewel came out, yeah, whatever, I don't know what's about to happen, but it's about to be the coolest thing ever.
Jewel, Alanis Morissette,
right?
Oh my lord, yeah,
right. But now you walk into a coffee house and people are like, it's like it's become a very inward society because of our ability to. I mean, if you think about it, it's like back in the old days, if you had a website, then people were like, "Whoa, you've got your own website?" But now everybody has their own website. So, what are you going to do? You're going to go to your website and check and see if anyone's liked your website. Oh, and now I'll go to this other website, which is also all about me, and I'll check this. It's like we are so self-consumed. I don't know about you, man, but one thing about recently, I was down with the sickness, with the COVIDs.
Yeah, right.
And it made me. I rejected a lot of things. I rejected food during that time. I just, didn't want to eat anything. I rejected social media during that time because it was sickening. And I just wonder if maybe, are we on the cusp of maybe a self-awareness that we don't really, the dopamine hits are not coming the way they used to. We're not getting that thrill off of having our own website where people talk about us all the time. I don't know. I know this is kind of side railing, but this is where our conversations tend to go.
We always end up having these, when we're not filming, we're having these deep analytical, what's wrong with the world conversations that always start and then also end with music.
Exactly. We'll come back around to music.
It will get there.
Stick around, guys.
Yeah. It's strange because, when you say that the world is cyclical, I still believe that. But in a lot of ways, I don't know where this cycle goes.
Right. It feels like the first time.
Because this has not happened before.
The grand experiment.
Well, I mean, we were even talking about it at lunch when we were kids. I think every kid dreamed of being a star in some capacity.
Right.
You wanted to be in the movies, or if you saw a child star. When I was a kid, Nickelodeon stars were the first kind of, and that was the first generation of that. You had the Mickey Mouse Club, and then like all that. If anybody remembers Snick and all that, that was like the first real big like kid stars. Outside of Shirley Temple 50 years ago.
Right.
And so you kind of dreamed about doing something like that, but that was not something that you legitimately believed was attainable.
Or you would spend time trying to do something like that, meaning that you would spend your time trying to hone a craft, trying to learn how to play guitar, learn how to sing, learn how to act, learn how to, you went after it
better than anyone.
Right.
So, I mean, you would go and do musical theater. You would go and practice your instrument. You would try and you would do your vocal lessons.
And then maybe, just maybe, you would be able to find a measure of success that would lead to some increment of fame. But now
I can relate it to you this way, because while you relate it to music, I can go back to journalism a little bit and talk about it from that perspective. When I was coming up in the business, starting out at River Valley Radio and then on to Channel 7, it was a very, very competitive game, even just 15 years ago, because television was still paramount. And there were only so many slots. There's, I think, 10 market stations in the state of Arkansas. Everybody wants to be the 10 o'clock anchor. There's only 20 of those jobs in the entire state.
Right.
And you think you're going to be one.
Right.
You've got to be better than everybody else in order to do that.
Right.
But the medium has changed so much.
Right.
Now, anybody with a video camera or a cell phone has a video camera. No one even calls them video cameras anymore. I'm so old. It's the Tweed. It's still...
It goes well with your VHS recorder.
I remember the Betamax.
The days.
You know, now, you know, you've got live cell phone video and people are doing these mock reports and people are getting hired at these news stations from that.
Wow.
And I'm going, that's not, first of all, it's not even journalism. That's trash. Stop doing what you're doing. Cronkite's rolling right now. He's absolutely rolling. But second, it goes back to that idea of I didn't have to hone my craft. And I'm not taking away from this generation because they do have opportunities that we legitimately didn't have. But I think they suffer from not having to be excellent. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. But, you know, you can only have this conversation so long before you start thinking, we're the old guys. Hey, everybody. Back in my day, I had to stand on my head and read the news.
Right, exactly. I walked to school. I never did that. Not once.
I played 5-hour shows without taking a break. That's the truth, though.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But
what is now the standard of excellence?
Right.
Generally.
Well, I think it's dropped a lot, to be honest. I mean, I think that's why, you know, these clips that people take off because, you know, you can create a 5-second moment where people are like, oh, it was so beautiful, I cried. You know, and I think people are mastering that through Vine and through Snapchat and through now TikTok.
Vine's not a thing anymore.
Right, Vine's gone. But I'm saying Vine was the beginning.
Right, Vine started that.
The 9-second video clip, that was, you know, and then, but that's basically TikTok now.
Yeah,
so.
more or less. I mean, and it becomes this real highlight reel of, here, I can do something really, I can do almost anything great for 2 seconds.
That's fair.
Almost anything.
Yeah.
If you shoot some video of me playing guitar for 2 seconds,
2 seconds,
it's going to sound
amazing.
Great. It's like I'm hitting one. Now, if you heard the previous 5 or the next 5, now that's trash.
No one needs to hear that.
Don't listen to me do that. But those 2 seconds are good. We really do sound like two people who are on the front porch who are about to throw rocks at children.
See over my lawn, kid. No, I think yes, but part of it, I think, for our generation, Gen Xers, that's what I am. Are you? I'm
an '87 model, so I'm technically considered an early millennial, an early version millennial. I don't claim. I'm like
you're one of the
beta.
first generation.
I'm beta version millennial where we still had to like play outside and that kind of thing.
Okay.
You know?
Well, then you know enough about Gen X. Then you know we were latchkey kids and kicked out of our house when we got home. You know, so
I was a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the point being is, I think for Gen Xers and first gen millennials are we're trying to make sense of this because we're old enough to remember that there was a time where you had to be talented before people would give you accolades.
Right.
And now we're in a time where you don't have to be talented. You have to appear talented, or you could just appear pretty or seductive, or you know, there's several routes to get to this idea of influencer. And so I think maybe part of it is just us trying to make sense of it. And there's always going to be a little bit of lamenting for the nostalgia of, oh, well, back in my day, we had to actually be talented if we wanted, you know, people to.
It's funny though, because as I predicted, this would all come back to music.
And here it comes, folks. Wait for the professor to bring it.
Professor Vibe.
Professor Vibe.
Let's bring it back. I would postulate the theory here that the people who like Bob Dylan and let's just use Dylan as an example, probably had this conversation 20 years ago. Clapton probably had this conversation 20 years ago. B.B. King probably had this conversation 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, because these were people who were genuinely trailblazers in their craft, and then
Right.
what followed them. It's interesting because you can actually kind of see the trend happen. You've got a guy like B.B. King, and then followed by Eric Clapton. It's excellent, excellent. Then you've got, I'll put Prince in that next category, and Hendrix before him. Eh, Who's the guitar player now that everybody aspires to be? Who even plays guitar?
We have businesses like Gibson, filing for bankruptcy. Guitar companies are not making what they used to make now. Yeah, that's not to say that people don't play; they still do. But it's to say that who. That's a great question. Who is it people look to and like? Ooh, I want to play like.
Yeah,
Who is that?
I
don't know.
saw
Like
Slash.
John
on,
Mayer, maybe?
John Mayer might be the closest. Brad Paisley, Keith Urban, they're
Yeah.
good guitar players, but
Yeah.
there's not a Hendrix anymore. There's not a Clapton. There's not a
Yeah.
there's not a BB King.
But
there's not that
there's
standard.
there's a Skrillex, there's a DJ, there's
We're not any less talented.
yeah. No, but what I'm saying,
Right.
well,
Uh,
it's a different kind of talent.
yeah,
I guess.
we'll say
Yeah.
it like that. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, but I do think that with electronic music being so prevalent and most everything that's produced today is produced, in certain genres, everything is produced by being, band in a box kind of thing. So
But then you go back to the Ryan Harmons of the world,
amazing
and
talent.
the Kenny
Yeah.
Drains of the world,
Yeah.
and these underground guys who are very successful locally.
Hmm.
Who, if I listen to Kenny Drain on his album and I listen to Kenny Drain live, it's the same.
Hmm.
If I listen to Some Guy Named Robb, if you broke out your guitar right now, it's going to be the same as it was on Indie Boy for the most part.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of extra in there. Where I think we lament, where I lament, is that I don't know of a mainstream artist that I could say that about right now,
Yeah.
and that is bothersome.
Well, do you think that? I think why we create art is maybe the question that is intriguing to me right now, because if Indie Boy was created, for example, because I had all these songs welling up inside of me and I wanted to put them out on a collection. So, there's a lot of legitimacy to just, these are the things that come to my mind. Like there's a song called I Know Why the Caged Lion Roars. Well, that's because I've been chained up for 2 years, Yeah.
Right.
We all know what it's like, and that's a song, you should check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. But, I think now we create art, a lot of people create art, not because they want to create something beautiful, want to take something inside them and say, this is what God gave me and this is what's stirring around and I want to share it with you, because if I don't, it's just going to, like everything else, it's going to decay and fade away. And I think now people are creating art because they want to be famous. They're creating these TikToks, videos, even songs. They set up these scenarios where their mom hears them for the first time, and her mom didn't know that she could sing. I'm like, I'm pretty sure your mom knew that you could sing if you lived in the house with her. But
Right.
they set up these tear-jerking videos, but people buy it.
But they work.
They're like,
They work.
This
I
is
mean,
great.
it's hook, line, and sinker. And the thing is that there's talent out
Yeah.
there, but can they break through? And the reason that I brought you guys up as far as the underground stuff, there is a blossoming scene, not just in the River Valley. I'm a big Red Dirt Texas country guy.
Yeah.
I love like Whiskey Myers and some of the stuff that's starting to become more mainstream because of Yellowstone.
Right.
But that where I can listen to them live and it's exactly the same as it was on the album, maybe with some additional variations, that kind of thing. Is the attention span such that now an artist feels like, hey, if I don't get out something soon, even if it's not excellent, I'm going to lose relevance?
That's a really interesting thought. I've got two thoughts. My mind's thinking two different things, but one is I think that there is an awareness that if instead of creating just albums now, just dropping singles, I think is the way to go, because you keep your audience entertained and they walk with you. And then by the time you're finished with putting out your singles, you've got enough to make an album. And if people want to purchase a collected sense of work, then they will. The other thing I was thinking, though, was, do you remember Elliott Smith? Elliott Smith was back in the '90s. He was most notable because he ended his life by stabbing himself in the heart. Right, not the
I feel
best.
like I remember that.
Yeah, that's the part that
yeah.
kind of people. He wrote Good Will Hunting soundtrack. He did
Okay,
a
yeah,
lot of the
yeah.
Miss Misery and songs like that. Well, I was thinking about him just now because I was thinking that people, I wonder, someone like him who hated fame, which is not uncommon. You know, Van Morrison hates fame. He hates the game of it. People like him, I wonder if maybe they're the ones who are slipping between the cracks now because they won't play the fame game. You know, I mean, his Elliott Smith was, discovered, and they pushed him into the spotlight. He ended up playing at the Grammys or something one year, and it was a huge thing. And you could just tell that he felt incredibly uncomfortable doing it. I think maybe artists like that used to rise to the surface, I think those maybe fall through the cracks now because we have so many people pushing to try to get to that. Like you said, in Arkansas, there's only 20 broadcasters.
Right.
And think about how much music is put out there. Was it 400,000 hours of music is uploaded every day?
Every single day.
Yeah.
It's nearly 500,000.
It's almost 500,000 now,
Yeah.
right? So, there's not enough time to listen to all the music in the world. And now we have to think, okay, that a lot of us will go back to whatever we liked whenever we were 15, 16, 17 years old. I'll be honest, it's hard to choose to listen to new music. I mean, it's hard for anybody.
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I listened to The Point, 94.1, because it was classic rock. And that's what my parents listened to.
Right.
Now I'm listening to my music on The Point, 94.1, which
Right.
is semi-depressing.
Right.
But they had the same trouble.
Yeah.
They had the same trouble.
Yeah.
And is it possible that there is there is also a generational thing where you kind of at some point just stop and you say, "This is my taste,"
Right. It's
and I'm not
nothing
going,
else is getting in.
I am done. I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
And if maybe something kind of hits you,
If it's usually it's in the form of mainstream, meaning that it was in a movie that was popular,
Yeah.
and maybe you watched that movie, and so you had that connection with that moment. But I agree. I don't think people after a certain age they are nearly as open to music. And as a songwriter, of course, who's always creating new songs, it's so lovely when I do find my tribe of people who are like, "Hey, play the game," and I'm like, "How did you hear the game? I haven't released that yet." And they're like, "Oh, I saw you play it live. I want to hear that song." I'm like, all right. So, those people are they're listening, and I wish I could say there were a million people that were open to new music, but like you said, a lot of us we grow to where it felt good, and then life got hard, and so we go back nostalgically and listen to
the time where it didn't feel as hard.
right.
If the music that is new sounds like the music that I liked,
Right.
then I'm more likely to welcome it.
That's true.
My parents did the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that I can objectively say that the music that my generation was coming out with, here's the old fogey moment, is better than the music that's coming out now. But
Man, don't get me started on that, right?
but the problem with that is that our parents said the same thing.
Well,
And
I
their
think they were
parents
right.
said the same thing.
I think they were right.
And their
I
parents
think
said
they were right.
So has it degraded to that point?
Okay,
we're just going to be hearing random incoherent noises in 20 years.
Listen, hey guys, thanks. Check out my new single. Hope you like it.
Feelings, and that's it.
Feelings. No, Jerry and I were talking about. My wife and I were talking about this the other day, and we were talking about how if I've lost it. It's in there somewhere. It'll come back.
It'll come back. We were talking about generational musical
about
degradation.
how it's always
Yeah,
better,
yeah.
right? Well, I think that it was better. Whenever I was a kid, I was listening to a lot of really good music, music that was good for my parents' time, and music that was good for my time. And people, and then now I'll see some things like Nicki Minaj or Cardi B, and it's so very graphic and
Right.
so very in your face and sexualized. And people tell me, well, that's the same stuff they were playing back whenever we were kids. And I don't know how to say this, but my music taste don't suck. And I was never listening to whatever they're referring to. I guess they were talking about Two Live Crew or Tupac, or and they were talking about things that were, I guess, also vulgar. But my point is, like, there's so much great music in the world. You don't have to listen to the crap.
Right.
You know.
But I want this is the key question.
Do it.
The key question is, what is the appeal of that?
Well, sex is always appealing.
Well, I mean, okay, take that part of it away. I mean, sex has been talked about through music forever. I mean, when people say that's what they were talking about back when we were kids, I go back and I listen to some music that I listened to as a kid now, and I go, oh, well, yeah, that's problematic. But there was some nuance. It doesn't make it any
Right.
more or less correct.
Well, right.
But there was at least some nuance there.
Right.
But what is the appeal of a Cardi B, of a Nicki Minaj, of a
At this point, I think
I don't understand
It's
it.
to try to be more vulgar than the last person, because
Can you top this kind of
yeah,
thing?
can you talk? It's shock, and it's funny because you think that we would have already have shocked everything we could possibly shock, but it surprises me, you know, whenever I see young people knowing every single word to some of the most vulgar songs around, and I'm like, well, music paves the way for our society. Music paves the way for, you know, you put music before a football game, of course you do, rile people up. You put
Right.
music before church, of course you do, to get people introspective.
Funerals.
Funerals.
I'm a
and-
marketing guy. There's a reason why they play the music that they do in Walmart and Kroger.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness, man! I was going through Kroger the other day shopping, and it was like playing my playlist. I'm like, I'm the old guy in Kroger
Right.
who's all like, listen to The Cure, and it's like they're playing The Cure.
Right. Like, I was going through Walmart the other day. I only needed 2 things
Right,
that my wife sent me in there for.
right.
But they were playing Genesis.
And which song?
Invisible Touch.
Invisible Touch.
That's
Yeah,
the one.
exactly.
That's the one. And so I
And
just
you gotta
walk-
listen to it.
And I can't stop.
No, that's rude.
You know, that's that's inappropriate. When all right, I knew we would do this.
Yes,
I knew we would get off on the tangent.
yes.
And we've already almost gone an hour.
That's how we roll.
We did this last time. I knew we were going to do it again.
We, Professor Vibe, we are interesting people.
You were an interesting person.
To one another. At least to one another. We are
25
interesting
minutes
people.
ago, the people who were like 20, 25 and under just went, okay, y'all are old. So,
We'll edit this into the old segment. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah,
If you identify with anything that we're saying right now, it's because
you are also old. I mean, there is some validity to it, though, right? I mean, let's go back to that.
Right? Are
Just
you
for a
asking me
minute.
to validate
I mean, well, I mean, let's okay. You said, and I said that our generation thinks that this generation's music sucks.
right.
Our parents thought that about our music. Their parents thought that about their music.
Yeah.
But you go back you don't have to go back too far before it's just piano bar music. And that's what you had.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the big band kind of an era
the
where
Wagner
you know
and
and
Neil
the phono,
Moller, yeah.
and then you have the Victrola and the phonograph and,
Right.
and that stuff starts to come out, and there's great music being produced, real music, and then you have the crooners start coming out, and there's Sinatra and there's Dean Martin and these people, and then it goes into the Buddy Holly era, and then we go into the '60s, and then
David
like,
Bowie and
right. But you, according to what you just said,
Yes.
it got worse.
I think it's mainstream has gotten worse, in my opinion. Yeah, I do, and I think it is safe to say, like, from those eras. I mean, yeah, you love to listen to I mean, I love to listen to some Frank Sinatra if I'm in the right mood too. I love to listen to some David Bowie. I love listening to Jimmy and Janis and the Doors and coming into that. And then of course going to the '80s, man, come on. We were just talking about
Right.
Toto,
Yeah, at lunch today, Toto.
at lunch and then '90s, maybe it gets a little more canned, but then you also have Pearl Jam and you have some bands that broke through.
Got some Nirvana that
Nirvana,
started grunge.
The Pixies, and then you come into the 2000s, and there are. It's harder now, right? You're like,
Well, and that's where I start to think, all right, maybe music like did start to get like legitimately worse, but only because it was more available. Like the commercialization of it may have been the reason why. Because, and actually, you know what? That may be it. Just sheer availability has lowered the standard.
I agree with that. Yeah, because we have 500,000 hours of uploaded music. It's so hard. I will say I found some people recently that I really, really enjoy their music. And I guess as a musician who's writing original songs, I'm always kind of keeping my ear out. So there's a few people. Troubadour is from the east side of the state, and they've got such sweet voices. They're a duo, husband-wife team, really good. These are people I actually follow on Patreon. I pay them monthly because I like their music. Sean Rao from, I think it's New York State or maybe up in Washington. Great songwriter, deep voice, powerful songwriter. From Ireland, Orla Garland just released an album called Woman on the Internet, and it's genuinely good, man. Like, it's pop, but it's really well-written pop, and she does it really well. And so there's a few people like that I follow, and I'm so. And Jordan Claussen from Vancouver, British Columbia, another just amazing songwriter. And I've found these people through either through Patreon or through Bandcamp, places like that. And I really, it gives me such hope that there's amazing music out there. And to me, that's exciting because it's so easy to focus on what the mainstream is telling you to focus on, and the horrible lyrics and the over-sexualized and overtly sexual tactics of the music in the mainstream. But I can tell you, like, there's some really, really good music out there. You're just going to have to dig for it. It's not going to come to you nearly as easy as it might have at one time.
Well, you know what? You don't have to dig for great music if you don't want to, because you can log on to www.sgnrob, that's ROBB.com, and pick up the brand new album, The Adventures of Indie Boy. I've got my signed copy here, and if you cannot wait, you can stream it now on Spotify. Where else can you hear
Apple
it?
Music, iTunes. You can buy it on iTunes. You can go to Deezer and Tidal and all these streaming platforms that offer that stuff.
The gold standard of local music, Rob McCormick.
It's too kind, Professor Vibe.
That right there is a catchphrase for something. I don't know for what, but it's that's a song. That's a song for Black Stripe. That's too kind, Professor Vibe.
That's exactly how the album should start off. And then people are like, who is Black Stripe? Who is Professor Vibe?
What
he
is
sounds
this?
Dangerous.
Like, he's probably wearing tweed.
Tweed.
Rob, I'm glad we did this again.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me, Drew. I really appreciate you. Appreciate you being the interviewer that you are. I've told you before, I've been interviewed a lot, and I've never had the fun, the ease, the comfort, the joy of an interview like this with you. You are you excel in this, and I think that the River Valley is really blessed to have you as part of the vibe.
Well, thank you for that.
Professor.
But you are the gold standard for what you do too. So
Thanks so much.
I'll take that compliment from you. We got to do this again.
Yeah.
You guys have got to check out The Adventures of Indie Boy. Pick it up now at www.sgnrob.com. SGNROBB.com. Go to Spotify, Google Play, wherever you stream your music, and go listen to it right now. While you are online, push play, open up a new tab, and go to www.russellvilleliving.com. Check out all of the new houses and listings. Maybe one of our agents from Olathe Realty can help you buy or sell your home, or if you just want to give us a call, it's 479-968-5668. Our thanks to Rob McCormick. My name is Drew Brent. This has been The Spotlight. We will see you right back here tomorrow.
Professor Vibe.